You know, after 28 years on this bench, I thought I understood the arithmetic of desperation. I thought I knew exactly what a person does when they find money that could change their life, and nobody is watching and nobody would ever know. I was wrong. Completely and quietly wrong. One particular morning, a man walked into my courtroom. He didn't come in wearing a suit or carrying a briefcase. He came in escorted by a police officer wearing gray coveralls with a building logo on the left breast because he had come directly from his shift. He was 54 years old. He earned $14.20 an hour. He had a daughter in nursing school and a mother he was supporting overseas. And in his careful hands, he was holding a plain white envelope with $8,000 inside it that he had found 3 days earlier and had not touched beyond what was necessary to get it to the right hands. I sat there on my bench. A woman who has presided over 28 years of cases involving every kind of human calculation. And I felt something I had not felt in a long time, not surprised at what he had done. Something quieter than that. What Samuel Oley did, and more importantly, what happened when I asked the man who came to claim that envelope to look at the man who had returned it, and then what that man's brother said next, is a story I carry with me every single day before this is over. You will understand exactly why 28 years on this bench teaches you to read a person before they open their mouth, teaches you to read what they are carrying, not what is in their hands, but what they have brought into the room with them. The weight of it, the way they hold it, whether it is something they are surrendering or something they are protecting. My mother taught me the beginning of that education. She cleaned other people's offices for 19 years. Early morning shifts in the financial district out before the executives arrived. Invisible in the way that people who maintain other people's spaces are always invisible. She told me every morning before school, you don't need to own anything to be worth everything. You just need to be honest about what's yours. I carried that into every case I have ever decided from this bench. It was a Monday in October. The light in the courtroom was the specific gray of October. Institutional light, not harsh, not warm, the light of a day that makes no promises. My docket was routine property matters, minor civil disputes, the ordinary business of a morning that expected nothing unusual from itself. Then the door opened. He came in escorted by a police officer, gray coveralls with the Meridian Office Complex logo stitched on the left breast, work boots, 54 years old, though he looked both exactly his age and ageless in the way that people look when they have been doing hard, honest work for a very long time. His posture was the specific posture of someone who was taught early and firmly that how you carry yourself is the first thing people decide about you. He had not forgotten that lesson. And in his careful hands, held with the particular attention of someone transporting something that belongs to another person, a plain white envelope. Inside that envelope, $8,000 in cash and a handwritten note. Let me ask you something directly. If you found $8,000 in a corporate elevator on a Monday morning and your daughter had nursing school tuition due, what would you do? I want to be clear about what kind of matter this was, because the clarity matters to everything that followed. Samuel Oley was not a defendant. He was not charged with anything. He had been brought to my courtroom for one reason, because a plain white envelope containing $8,000 in cash had been found in an executive elevator, and the circumstances of its recovery needed to be established on the record before any determination about its return could be made. What the record established was this. On the morning of October 7th, Samuel found the envelope wedged under the brass rail of the executive elevator on the 14th floor, partially hidden by a dropped newspaper. He took it to building security before his shift was over the same morning and filed a written report with his supervisor by 8:20 a.m. He cooperated with building management's attempts to locate the owner for 3 days. When management could not resolve the matter cleanly, it was referred to the police who brought Samuel to this courthouse. The contents had been invented at the precinct in front of him. 40 bills, $8,000. The handwritten note for Marcus. Do not deposit for the supplier, undisturbed. The man claiming the envelope arrived shortly after the matter was called forward. His name was Victor Hale, 47 years old, Chief Financial Officer of Hale Mercer Consolidated, the investment firm occupying the 14th floor. He was accompanied by a private attorney from a downtown firm who had already filed a motion requesting immediate return of the property to her client. Victor entered the courtroom with the clipped efficiency of a man who was scheduled 20 minutes for a nuisance and intends to be done in 15. He did not look at Samuel when he entered. He looked at the bench, then at his phone, then at his attorney in a rotation that communicated complete certainty about how this morning was going to end. The envelope was produced. Victor's attorney verified the count. 40 bills, $8,000, the note undisturbed. She nodded. Victor reached for the envelope. I raised one hand. I noted that there was another person in the gallery's third row, a man who had been sitting there since before the hearing began, watching everything with the particular attention of someone who had come to this courtroom for a specific reason. I would return to him. First, I asked Victor whether he had anything he would like to say to the man who had found and returned his envelope. Victor Hale looked at Samuel Obi for the first time since entering the room. Then he said, "I appreciate that he turned it in. That's what you're supposed to do." The gallery went very still, not the gasping stillness of shock, something quieter, the stillness of a room that has just heard something that is technically correct and entirely insufficient and knows collectively that it knows the difference. Victor's attorney reached again for the envelope. I did not move it. I said, "Mr. Hale, what you are describing is the minimum. I am not asking whether Mr. Obi did what was required. I am asking whether you have something you would like to say to a man who earns $14.20 an hour, who has a daughter in nursing school and a mother he supports, who found $8,000 in cash in an executive elevator and took it to building security before his shift was over, and filed a written report and cooperated with this process for 3 days. I am asking whether you would like to say something to that specific man about that specific choice." Victor's expression tightened. He said he had already said he appreciated it. He said it twice now. He would like his property returned. I want to be precise about what Victor Hale was in that moment. He was not cruel. He was not performing contempt. What he was doing was something more specifically difficult to name. He simply did not have the category, the concept that Samuel's act had cost him something, that it had required something. That concept was operationally absent, not suppressed, absent. The gallery understood this. The room held it. I was about to speak again when there was movement in the third row. Marcus Hale stood. The courtroom turned toward him. The way rooms turn when something unexpected happens that everyone immediately understands is significant. Not with noise, but with the collective reorientation of attention. He was 41 years old, dressed in plain clothes, no attorney beside him, nothing that announced any particular institutional role. He had been in the third row since before the hearing began. He had not spoken. He had simply watched. He asked whether he might address the court. I looked at Victor's attorney. She looked at Victor. Victor looked at Marcus with the specific expression of a man watching a situation he believed was entirely contained begin to open from the inside. I said, "Please proceed, Mr. Hale." Marcus spoke without notes and without the rehearsed quality of someone who has prepared remarks. He spoke the way people speak when they have thought about something for a long time and have finally arrived at the room where it can be said. He told the court that the envelope was not a company matter. It was a personal arrangement between his brother and a supplier that Marcus had been asked to participate in and had refused. He told the court that the handwritten note inside the envelope was addressed to him because Victor had intended for Marcus to be the one to deliver the cash. Marcus had not agreed to this. He had not known Victor had prepared the envelope. He had not known Victor had lost it. He said, "I came here today because I needed someone with authority to know what this envelope represents, and I needed to say it in front of my brother and on the record." The courtroom was completely still. Victor's attorney was on her feet. Victor's face had the expression of someone watching a door he thought was locked open from the inside, not with violence, but with the quiet, irrevocable motion of something that cannot be undone. I said, "Mr. Hale, Victor Thorpe, I want you to understand something. This court has just received testimony on the record raising substantive questions about the nature and purpose of the cash in this envelope and the arrangement it was intended to facilitate. This matter is no longer a simple return of property proceeding." Victor's attorney objected immediately and at length. She was thorough and she was fast. I noted every objection for the record. I did not change the ruling. The envelope would be retained as evidence. The matter was referred to the district attorney's office for review. Victor Hale left the courtroom without the envelope and without the composed efficiency he had arrived with. His attorney was already on her phone before they reached the door. Marcus Hale sat back down. He looked across the room at Samuel Obi, who had been standing through all of it with his hands at his sides and his posture unchanged. The posture of a man who had done one thing and was prepared to let that be the complete and total sum of what he had done. Marcus said, "You didn't know what you were returning, but it mattered." Samuel nodded once, the specific nod of a man who is not looking for more than what he already has, which is the knowledge that he did what he came to do. I stepped down from the bench. I step down perhaps 3 or 4 times a year. It is not a gesture I make lightly. But there are moments when the most important thing this bench can do is not preside from a height, but be present at the same level as the person in front of it. This was one of those moments. I walked across the courtroom floor to where Samuel was standing and extended my hand. He shook it. I said, "Mr. Obi, you found money that could have changed your month, possibly your year. You found it in a building where you have worked for 11 years. In an elevator, you ride 6 days a week, and you walked it to security before your shift was over. You filed a written report. You cooperated for 3 days. You came to this courthouse in your work uniform because you came directly from your shift, and you stood in this room for 2 hours while other people's proceedings moved around you. And you held that envelope with the same care you brought it in with. What you did is exactly what the law asks of people, and it is exactly what most people in your position do not do. This court thanks you." The room was quiet in the way rooms go quiet when something has been confirmed that needed to be confirmed. In the gallery's second row, Amara Obi Samuel's daughter, who had driven him here in her 2009 Honda with the cracked rear bumper before her morning class, was wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, not dramatically. The way you wipe your eyes when something true has just been said about someone you love in a room full of strangers. Samuel looked at his daughter, then he looked back at me. 6 weeks later, the district attorney's review returned its findings. What it found was a pattern, not a single transaction, but a series of cash disbursements from Victor Hale to a supplier whose invoices did not correspond to any work that had been performed or any contract that had been formalized. The pattern was consistent with off-book financial arrangements investigated for tax fraud and potentially bribery. Marcus Hale cooperated fully with investigators. The matter was referred to the state's Financial Crimes Unit. Victor's attorney negotiated a settlement that included significant financial penalties, cooperation with the ongoing investigation, and Victor's resignation from Hale Mercer consolidated. No criminal charges were ultimately filed against Victor. The broader investigation of the supplier arrangement implicated 2 other companies and resulted in 1 separate criminal prosecution. Samuel Obi's building security report filed at 8 a.m. on the morning of October 7th, before anyone knew what the envelope contained, became key documentation in the timeline. The investigators needed to establish precisely when the cash had gone missing and who had known it was gone. Samuel's report, filed before Victor even knew the envelope had been found, anchored the sequence. A janitor's early morning honesty had become the fixed point around which an entire financial crimes timeline was organized. 4 months after the hearing, Amara Obi passed her nursing lecture examination. Samuel attended the pinning ceremony the following month in a suit he has owned for 12 years, pressed the night before. It arrived the way the things you work for always arrive. Not dramatically, not with fanfare, but on an ordinary day in February when your daughter walks across a stage